Welcome to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art.
All right, welcome back to the Dog Psychology Podcast with Todd and Art. Today we have a extraordinary guest joining us today. We've got Stephen Griffin, and Stephen Griffin is an author, researcher, and globally recognized performance expert on time, productivity, and performance. For 25 years, he's worked with an impressive range of individuals and organizations, including CEOs, entrepreneurs, executives, professionals, and Olympic athletes. And even major, and you, yeah.
Me, I've been right on that list.
You got the best.
He's been work with the U.S. military, LAPD, and the National Academy of Sports Medicine. His client roster also boasts over 40 current NFL players, as well as collaborations with iconic names like Jim Kimmel Live, members of the NBA, MLB, NHL, and more. A lot of three letters there. Stephen is the author of The Time Cleanse, a proven system to eliminate wasted time, a groundbreaking book that has helped countless individuals reclaim their time and focus on what truly matters. And if it wasn't enough, Stephen is also a former Chicago Golden Gloves boxer and Illinois State heavyweight champion. Let's go. A true testament to his discipline and determination. We first met Stephen back in the Training Caesar's Way workshop. We did the leash workshop with you. And his unique perspective on time and connection deeply resonated with us, especially when it comes to building meaningful relationships with dogs and people. Stephen, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Oh, great to be here with both of you.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you again. Yeah.
So you remember the workshop. So yeah, we met in, what was the year? 2019?
19, I think, 19 or 20.
It was just the tail end of the pandemic, if I remember. There was the first workshop coming out of the pandemic, if I remember.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, and you had Mana, right? And how old was he then?
He was one. Let's just get the action.
Bring up the boy.
Come here.
And I remember there was a certain type of breed. What was he?
He's a shorty bull. So
Shorty bull.
English, French, and 7% Staffordshire Terrier. So
I think that's crazy. They say you look like your dog. What do you mean?
Yeah.
And he's a great dog. I mean, so, we've kind of had conversations back and forth and traded expertise. And, I've given you a little bit of advice along the way. You've used your expertise, but he's kind of an issue-free dog, I think, if for the most part, right? I mean, he's really checks boxes, social, he can chill, the whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's in daycare regularly with 40 dogs, no issue. He is, I have to say, a little bit like Daddy. So the only thing that he does, and it's actually calm, is like when he sees dogs like getting after it, he's a little bit of a tendency to be a helper, and he'll like come in and submarine one of the dogs. Now that has been reduced, but that's probably the only little like it's a little bit of a pack regulator.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've seen video of him with that little Pomeranian puppy.
Well, playing with dogs.
And as good as you could really draw up, he was. And so that is, regulating certain things is as important as changing some things. So,
and that's thanks to both of you and Caesar and that early training. And I'm sure we'll get into that, but one of the best decisions I've ever could have made. One of my mentors said, Stephen, I've taught you a lot. I'm going to teach you a lot. It's pale in comparison to what that dog's going to teach you. And I get chills thinking about it because at first I was like, yeah. Not a question about the life lessons and self-reflection on my own life and who I am.
Yeah. Well, that actually brings up probably my first question is like, how did you, with your work that you do, and you, I guess, saw an ad for Caesar's workshop, like how did you go about going into, wanting to take the workshop?
Yeah, I've always, studying human behavior and what I've done for, close to 30 years now. I remember when I first saw his show and I was immediately attracted to the dog aspect, but more about the people and understanding, when I talk about communication, he talks about the exchange of energy and information, right? So communication is an exchange of energy and information, our body language, our voice tone, the words we choose. So I'd always watched him for years. I was like, I really like the psychology of it. I didn't have a dog at the time. I always liked dogs. And so when that became available, I was like, I'm all in.
When you would watch him, what would you see about that combination of the way he would use his body and understanding of energy? Like, what stood out?
Well, the first thing that stood out is just the which both of you have as well, is just that calm presence, but not calm in a passive way, calm leadership. Like, what I talk about with clients is a firm mind and a soft heart. Firm mind, soft heart, and that ability to respond to the environment, not react. He was going into environments, still goes into environments where everyone's reacting, right? He's in there responding with his tools, and it was really, and also the ability to read. So I call it like entering that energy field and being able to read it and also to regulate it.
And I know we have some questions for you, but I mean, while we're on this, so in the human world, when people tend to be reactive versus responsive, what would that look like? What would people do in a reactive state versus what would they do in a responsive state?
Well, first of all, depending on what it is, I work with executive athletes, kids, you're seeing an initial reaction with no space and time in between it. So something happens, boom, they're doing something. Now, if you're in sports or situations, that's fine. But just in general, the fuse is short. There's no, somebody cuts them off. They're already reacting, right? Somebody looks at them. They're already engaging. There's no space from the stimulus to the response. And that is, in the science world, that would be the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, actually regulating the limbic center. And so the more we have tools, meditation, breath, our own development, we strengthen that prefrontal cortex that regulates these, I'll call it caveman responses.
Why do you think people are, because you talked about when people have responses, they react instead of, why do you think that is? Like, I feel like more so it's happening a lot more. People that seem to have a shorter fuse, you cut people off. When I don't really recall that happening when we were younger.
Yeah, I have the answer to that, and it's a simple one. So we're going to look at what's happened with technology. Okay, I'll put a little science background to this. So when we have our devices, we all have them. I haven't put away, so I don't see it. We are self-referencing the device, but in our brain, we are self-referencing ourself. So that's what we call left side referencing. So the left side is the controlling, the methodical, the logical. The right side of the brain is the embodied center, where we have mirror neurons, where we're reading empathy. We have empathy, we're reading emotions. So we have a brain shift that is causing a self-reference of self, not other. So when you're reading a text or you're reading an email, you are not connecting to that person. You are connecting to the interpretation of what you read, which is all dependent on your current state. Oh, I'm relaxed. I got food. I'm comfortable. I read this. Oh, Todd sent me a text. Oh, I have all my senses. Oh, I didn't sleep. I haven't eaten. I'm tired. Now I read that message from Todd. So I'm not regulated. Now, when I'm sure we'll get into, people and their dogs and technology, but so we've got to get back into our body. And one of the great things about owning an animal, talking about dogs here, if you do it right, it's a great experience to get back into your body and to relate to another creature that has its exchange of energy and information. But we're so used to referencing this phone that social network of reading cues for a lot of kids isn't even developed, and for a lot of adults is so dulled that they're forgetting they're with human beings.
So if I'm to get this right, because this is actually connecting a dot to me, quite a big one. When we're in our right side, we will not intuitively have the mirror side, because we've actually talked on the show about the mirror neurons, because I've talked about the way we're mimicked so much from the things that live with us for long periods of time. And I can even go into where I think that's the background behind where people say these dogs are brilliantly smart. It's that the people that are working with them for hours a day trigger that. But so when you're in your right side, you're saying you can't be reflective of that stuff. So
Yeah,
that's what they can't figure out that they're tense, or they can't figure out that they're this because they're not present in the other part.
Correct. And just to kind of clarify, I'm not a neuroscience, but I have a word now, right? So we have left and right, and then we have something called the corpus callosum that connects the left and right. So there's a connection. And I'm going to say right brain or left brain dominant. There's never like one off. But what happens is the ability to have those mirror neurons activate is pretty much non-existent. Same thing in text messaging. When we're in electronic communication, we're reading that to interpret a state of being. Now, is it possible super creative, detailed communication about a feeling or a sensory experience? Could maybe, but from the research, it's very difficult to trigger mirror neurons through a text message, through your phone.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Interesting. So do you remember when we were at TCW, and this kind of goes what you were just talking about? Remember, Cesar talked about the 4 worlds. He had the spiritual, the emotional, the intellectual, and the instinctual. Those are the 4 worlds he talked about. Would you say that technology has replaced one of those worlds or added on to it, where it's kind of, if you don't use like the instinctual world and you're so stuck in the technological, that you start losing that instinctual side of yourself?
Yeah. So all those 4 worlds are the right side of the brain, which is the embodied, all 4 of them.
Yeah.
4 of them. So, when I'm out here walking here in Southern California with my dog, and Todd has, coached with me on this a lot, is, my head's on a swivel. And when I go to leash my dog, I'm in a ritual. And this is the big issue for a lot of people. They're treating their dog like they're their iPhone. It's just
wow.
There's no, and so I'm taking a few breaths, getting grounded. I'm having him calm before the leash goes on, and my phone is not coming out of my pocket. It's not coming out of my pocket. Now, if I'm in the park and I got to take a break, but if I'm moving, that phone is not present. I'm not on a headset. And I would say the majority of people that I see out walking are on their phone, their earbuds are in, and they're already creating a distancing energetically to their animal.
Wow.
It's the same thing I'm seeing with kids in cars,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I see a kid in the back and mom or dad's texting or they're talking, and I'm like, you're disconnecting from the environment.
Do you think your own personal exercise is made less effective when you're always listening and doing it, as opposed to just going through it more in silence, the way that, Cesar says noble silence. And, David Goggins, he's like, you don't need sound. No, do you think in the human world, we take ourselves into the wrong state, even with the well-intention of, hey, let me get myself through this with, music?
I go to the gym. Been going to the gym my whole life. I don't wear headsets in the gym. Now, if I do a little cardio, I'm going to do like a long cardio. So I'll put it on. When I'm interacting with people, I'm looking at them. I'm talking to them. I don't want to be around people and not be present. That's keeping, sharpening my own sword. I want to be there with them. And it goes back to the left and right brain. I can't tell you how many times I see a person on a machine. I'm like, excuse me. They're on there. And then because they went from left brain to right brain, and they're a little bit in that fight or flight. I've had tons of kind of not so pleasant, because they're getting startled. Now, I don't take it personally because I know they're in their left brain, but they're not present. They're, it's the old saying, this woman, Cheryl Turkle, she's from MIT, we're alone together. We're alone together.
Yeah. Well, it's teaching people to understand avoidance. We've talked about this, that the difference between avoidance when calm avoidance is one thing, but you just said it. So many people can't connect with others. And what we see so much with dogs is the same. They're super avoidant. They go out in public and they can't handle anything, like this pressure of anything around them make them wilt. That's what it seems like is happening with people. They can't handle the pressure.
Well, I'm constantly chatting up, the checkout person at Trader Joe's and asking them questions. That's part of my own common humanity. Also, it's to keep me sharp. Selfish. I want to talk to people. I want to talk to all kinds of different people. I want to talk to people that are in a bad mood, in a good mood. I want everything tuned up so I can be the most relevant human being I can be. If I'm coaching or just being a human, then I'm relevant.
That's an interesting concept. I want to talk to everybody, people in different moods and different things. That's not
Todd's wheelhouse right there.
Hearing that, I'm going, dude, that's a great concept, but definitely would need, I'd need a lot of sticky notes and stuff on things for reminders.
Unlike me, when we were at the last workshop, there was a guy who was like crying behind his car, and I went up and like, "Hey man, are you okay?" And Todd's like, "I'm gonna stay back." And Todd's like, "Does this guy have a gun or whatever?" And he ended up saying that he was at the gun range.
Dude, that was not smart move 101. So
I had a good feeling about it.
Anyways, that was a good one. So you have some questions, Art? I mean, we kind of got it going, but you really had some good points that we could, use to do this cross understanding of how knowing yourself, connecting with yourself. I mean, even the small things like connecting with earth. We talk about people being unbalanced. My wife got me a grounding mat. The true understanding of, the grounding and stuff. These are things that are reality, but people go right to the super intellectual. Hey, how do I do this? What's the tool? Tell me the exact technique.
What's the technique? Yeah.
What they're really doing. They're not feeling it on the inside. They're going through it. I mean, as you're saying, from the right side only, and they're not even connecting the right side to how they did it. And like this huge, massive disconnect. So I think that's where, people need the most help. The technical stuff is out there. The information's out there on what does it mean when my dog looks left and right and licks their lip and sees another dog? And when should I snap the leash or do an e-collar? I think that information's out there, but the true reason people aren't making that information work for them is because essentially, I think what you led with, we're not connecting to the side of ourselves that let us let that flow. And people like Caesar, and when I explain Caesar, the thing that to me stands out about him, and I'll use his words, calm, confident, love, and joy. Mm-hmm. In my experience of working with people, you almost never come across somebody who's all four equal, like without effort.
Yeah.
And even
us.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm saying I'm bringing myself into this conversation, and he is like, his love side is equally as high as his confidence side. And normally with the people that I come across, myself included, that doesn't happen, right? He carries with as much confidence, joy. And that, another one I find is very unusual, right? So the calm, confident, love, and joy at all those levels is, I think, where his ability, or at least my experience with him, that's the part that stands out with me.
Well, I wanted to add something to what you said. So when I came to the training with you and Caesar and Art, is that one of the things that I thought I was really good at is a lot of technical knowledge. I've been on the internet, I've done a lot of training, but the off for me, and my own disclosure, is I was so left brain. And I remember you said something to me, Todd, you probably don't remember this. I came with one of Caesar's leashes and you said, hey, we got to kind of change. We need a little prong for him. He's super muscular. That little, probably not going to work. And you said something to me. You said, hey, you just need a light touch. You're a big guy. We're just affecting the brain. Just a little light touch. And if there's one thing, there were many things that you and Caesar helped me with, is to get me back into my body. Now, I'm talking about this as an expert in the field, but I can screw it up. Just like when I showed up, I was like, oh, I read everything. I've seen every show. And I realized.
You wrote a book.
Right. And I realized,
right.
I realized left brain. And then I forgot the Hispanic gentleman that works here, bigger guy.
Jaime.
What's his name?
Jaime.
Yeah. Jaime, he came up to me afterwards because we were talking about boxing, and he's like, hey, man, you just look totally different than when you got here like 2 or 3 days ago, like with your dog.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just allowing now, not trying to control. Mm-hmm. I was allowing what was happening and then using the tools in a much softer, a much more present way.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the beginning of this, we talked about the responsive versus the reactive. And this is where what we find, and just with somebody like yourself who has all the knowledge and information, you'll be a second or two late to deliver it. And it makes it a reactive interaction between you and the dog, as opposed to a responsive one where you get to use the sensitivity and the softness. Now, me even knowing this doesn't mean I bring it into my personal life, but I mean, that's ultimately what it was, and you getting back into like that. And we've even used the words, feminine side, so to speak, that sensitive, letting the sensitivity guide it, because your dog, although it had this big bully look, is really a chill, sensitive dog that's got some confidence to him, and that's a great balance.
And back to, what he teaches me, if I get a little heavy-handed, when I mean heavy-handed, a little too much on the leash, not hitting, look, he immediately goes like this. Like, dude, what, like,
remember we talked about that with the leash ritual.
Yeah.
That same thing. So it's a dog like that. And we even had that conversation. It's going to keep you're going to be reminded to have to stay in touch with the side of you that's not the natural side. It always that's that soft kind of feminine sensitivity at times. And, I have a daughter that, to help remind me. And so it's interesting. So that the different ways that anymore it can be described. It just depends on how people can receive it.
Caesar would call that having finesse. Like, you have to have finesse to it, and he always talks about like how you can move a boat on water, have that same feel to it. So an
estimated that has a boat, dude, that is one of the best analogies he uses. He needs to put that in some form of use. We need to have some form of practice with that, because it really is, once you force it, it then goes a different direction. You're always having to counter work the energy you put into it. And it's an interesting concept. It's so clear.
Well, and what we've been talking about before, like just even the leash ritual, but the self ritual of, we're in a world where nothing, we used to be in a world where we got up, we went to work, we came back, work was over. That's gone. Everything's connected. And so what I see with people, and especially with their dogs, there's never a ritual or a reset. It's like, I'm on my text, I got this with my dog, let's go walk it. Hey, I'm just going to stay on my phone. I got a guy that lives in my condo here.
Wow.
Bless his soul. Every time I see him with his dog, he's just faced into his phone. Yeah. There's no connection.
What's his dog doing?
What's up?
What's his dog doing?
Crazy. I mean, I just, sees my dog, goes nuts, and it's a little toy, whatever it is. Great, I feel bad for the dog. And so just stopping, being where your feet are at. We talk about mindfulness, present aware, intentional, curiosity. In my book, I talk about timefulness, present aware, intentional with your time.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, and the bigger part is, when I'm talking to people just about their performance, but even like back to with the animals, it's like, why did you get an animal? Like really going back to the basics. So you have this, for some people it's an accessory, for an identity. There's many different reasons. And I think getting people clear, like, why am I having this companion? And then what's my commitment to this dog?
Mm-hmm.
And then how am I going to invest time in this animal? I mean, I feel for these dogs, because I'm walking around every day, they're out of control. They're not socialized. People are in their coffee. They got their coffee in their phones. And I was walking Mana about 3 weeks ago, and I saw a guy, busy street, big kind of shepherd, and then a smaller poodle, coffee, phone, 2 dogs. Shepherd's about 90 pounds. Right. So I got Mana up against the brick wall, and he steps off the sidewalk into the street. This is a 55-mile-an-hour street. And his shepherd is just spinning around on his back legs because he's trying to, I'm just like, dude, still on the phone? But I saw that ahead of time. If I didn't, we probably would have a problem.
Well, I mean, you have the means to protect your dog against that. I mean, what's terrible is so many other people don't have the confidence or awareness or ability. And then they're at the mercy of the other people's lack of everything. And you just said something that's great. Those are 3 great questions. Can you say those again? What is it? What were those questions you just said? Why you got a dog?
Well, I was so present, Todd. It came from my unconscious, but I'm going to try again. So I'm going to try. It's why did I, get this animal? Okay. And then, what is my commitment around time, that I'm going to invest with this animal? I mean, a lot of people don't, I really learned, it's my first dog, that this is a time investment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking about time, it's not always quantity of time. See, 2 hours aren't the same. So I just did a time cleanse training, A-game training for a big company. And I put a new slide. It's been a while since I did this training. And and it's basically 2 hours, a present hour and a non-present hour. And the difference in productivity, one, you're bouncing from task to task. Present hour, you're fully present, right? Productivity rises. Your compassion, your kindness, your humanity rises when you're present. When you're not present, left brain, we're reactive. We're left patient. And so it's not always about, I need 2 hours to train my dog. No, 20 minutes fully engaged is most people's hour.
Yeah.
So I'm more focused with people now in all aspects of my training, just getting them to get the quality time. They're like, I don't have any time. I'm like, you have 30 minutes? Like, yeah. I go home, turn the phone off, do some breath, get present, spend 30 minutes with your family. It's way better than 4 hours, you answering emails, texting, checking out on Netflix, and you're fully present 10 minutes of 4 hours.
Well, how would you, because you're talking a lot about time, which, you talk a lot in your book also. What would you, a lot of people always say, like, I don't have enough time. Like, how do you integrate that into like someone who has a very busy schedule?
Well, so I'll start from the beginning. So when the reason I wrote the book is back, it must have been 2014 or so. Every one of my clients in 1 week had the same answer, like 10 clients, don't have enough time. And I was just like, and I realized how time was affecting me. And that really was that week I decided I'm going to do something. I didn't know it was going to be a book. And I started researching and investigating and traveling for the next couple of years. And what I realized back then is the time philosophy of management was just totally outdated. It was tools and techniques before we had cell phones, before we had the pressures, and that the current tools that were out there were actually creating an adversarial relationship with time, right? Most people have an adversarial relationship with time. They're fighting against it. You'll hear words like this: if time allows, if my schedule allows. And I just ask people, who's time? You're talking about it like it's out there. It's you. It's your decisions. And so most people are waking up in time scarcity versus time affluence. Once we shift the belief that there's enough time, that's one, there's enough time. It's like if you woke up and you said, God, I'm tired. And all day long, you just kept telling yourself you're tired. Even if you weren't, you're just going like this. Same thing with time. So we want to understand that there's enough time in the principle of it, and then look through our life and go, where am I wasting it? And the most important question is, every habit, behavior, activity, anything we're doing, we ask one simple question: is this contributing or contaminating to my happiness and success? Very simple. When I just did my end of the year process for myself, one of the places I teach this, I just spent way too much time watching Netflix.
Yeah.
If I'm honest, if I look back at the year, that could have been $200-300 hours. So anywhere there's a gap in what I didn't do, it's right there. The other thing, Art and Todd, is throwaway time. There is so much throwaway time where you're waiting for somebody. You're in a car. You're doing your cardio. There's so much wasted time that people aren't even paying attention to. And when I did this training recently, I just did a quick time cleanse process. Everyone in the room, 2 hours back in their day, just like that. I didn't even do the whole thing. I go, let's look at how much time you're on your technology. Netflix, Instagram. And so when we decide I'm in charge of my time, I'm responsible for it, and it's 100% in my control, it changes the energy. We know from research, increased time pressure, reduces performance. Now, a little bit of pressure is good, a little bit's good, but when we feel like, and we just start shutting down. And when it comes to time, and this is really salient for dogs, I was thinking about this preparing for today, so I did a video over the pandemic time. It was called The Dash. And so we have a day that we're born, we have a day that we die. In between our headstone is our dash. It's every moment in time, every high and low, every success and failure, every good time and bad time. It's every moment in time. That's what we have. Our dog's dash is like this. Yeah. So when you really start thinking about your dog, my dog, I get emotional about it. He's 4. a third of his life is gone. So when people start going, I don't have time, just know that little guy or little girl ain't going to be here forever. And to really connect to how important this time is. And hey, listen, guys, I haven't been perfect at it, but man, just even preparing for this, just thinking about that dash, I think about it. There's a day he's not going to be here. Now, hey, I might go first. You never know. But when I got this dog, it was a lifelong dream for me. It's like I just kept putting it off. I took my own medicine. I was like, oh, next year I'm traveling. I got it. And then I'm like, what if there's not a next year? And so I made that decision, and it's been awesome. But that dash, man, when you really pay attention to it, changes everything.
Yeah, sure does.
Well, nobody wishes for more money when it's all over with. They all talk about things in the dash, right? Things they didn't do. Yeah. It wasn't like things they didn't have.
Yeah.
I also kind of feel that with the people that say that they don't have enough time, they're also, when you said that they live in a scarcity mindset, they also will also say, I've noticed, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough, insert the blank, So how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so people say, I don't have enough time. Well, you have to figure out where you're spending that time. Same thing if you want more money, if you feel you're spending too much money, well, let's figure out where you're spending that money, where we can improve on,
So what's the way to a time audit for people? What's like a simple way to take a look and do a...
Yeah, I'll give you a simple version in the book. It's more deal, but the simple version right now, anyone that's listening, is this. Just look at the people, places, habits, behaviors, okay, hobbies. These are just some categories, and mental thoughts. So one of the biggest killer of time is our internal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
This is one that can destroy someone's time.
Guilty.
So we then look at, I'll give you an example. Technology is the easiest one. Okay, in my week, we'll start with the day. Where am I using technology? Oh, Instagram, 20 minutes in the morning. Instagram, this isn't me, I'm giving you an example. Although some days it could be me. Instagram, 30 minutes. Facebook, 5 minutes. Candy Crush, 20 minutes. Netflix, 2 hours. Okay, so we look at it, and then we ask a simple question. Is this contributing or contaminating? Now, something could be a contaminant just because the amount of time. So we say Instagram, it actually is valuable, but it's not valuable for 3 hours. Let's cut it in half. Or we could say, you know what? I need to remove that completely. So we're going to look at same thing with people. There's people in the last year I stopped engaging with. It's really toxic. And so we do that, and then we just start counting the hours back. And then we can reinvest in the things that matter. It's fitness, time with our dog, personal development. But we've got to actually sit down and do an audit. It won't magically happen.
Yeah, this is true. The thoughts are a good one.
Man, that's really good stuff. You also talk about... Go ahead, Todd.
I was going to say, you're also an expert. You lean in on helping people deal with the part when the time thing, when all of that doesn't work, which is the stress and all of the anxiety. You help people with the performance side of things as well, right? So you've written books on time and how to better use time, but you've also, me personally, we had you come back and help the whole class with the psychology of, your own stress and expectations, and as loving yourself and, being kind to yourself and all of the empathy for yourself and so forth. So what's a good way to kind of start this from your point of view on how, you are a dog owner? What's one of the things that you see people deal with from the emotional standpoint and stress and anxiety standpoint? You help people on professional sports teams, like, not throw up on themselves. And our owners, explain the same thing to us, right? They're like, I want to throw up on myself when I see a dog. It doesn't matter if you're, it's all context. If you're a kicker, you're kind of used to it. It doesn't mean you don't get stressed and want to throw up, but you've been in it before. And
the number one tool that I teach, I had a father and his son come in for a session, a couple hour session, longtime client. And he said, hey, I want to bring my son. Son's 7 years old. Okay. So I've done, you're doing all the intellectual stuff, but the son's in the room reading. And then it was time to do some self-regulation tools. So had him come over with me, his dad, and, a couple of the breath techniques. I think I've shared with you that 4-7-8 breathing technique. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. That's 1,000-year, multiple 1,000-year-old technique from East India. Box breathing, another great technique, where you're inhaling for 5, holding for 5, exhaling for 5, holding for 5, doing that box. These are parasympathetic nervous system activators. So if we're a dog owner or an athlete and we're excited, sympathetic nervous system's jacked up. What I call is the RPMs are high. So we want tools to go, oh, I'm in my personal red zone, not dog red zone, high RPMs, couple breaths to bring it back, The other one is called the cyclical sigh, where that's an inhale and another inhale. So it's, and you'll see dogs do that.
Yeah.
Right. So this is something that came out of Andrew Huberman's lab a year or two ago. Another technique. And I watch him on, he's got that smashed up nose. He does that cyclical sigh all day long. He's just like, that'll bring our RPMs down. And so some of these techniques for the nervous system, the parasympathetic to be activated. And then second tool, this is more of a intellectual concept, is how do we stay optimistic and confident? Right? So you guys deal with a lot of people that are not confident when you start with them with their dogs, right? They're kind of, so when we look at optimism, I'll start with, optimism comes down to really one thing. What can I control? Then second step, what's good? What's good right now? You can't come up with anything that's good. What could be good if I do X? I'm not really in a good relationship with my dog, but what could be good right now is if I took a couple breaths, calmed myself down, had a better connection through that leash to my dog. My dog might walk a little better with me. Okay. That keeps more of an optimistic mindset. Now, this isn't everything. When people come to me and they're stuck, they're focusing every time the stuff they can't control. The stock market, there's fires. I got people calling me, texting me about, how do I regulate myself with these fires? Totally understandable. But they're focusing on the fires, not focusing on regulating themselves. And so we want to get back into powerful tools that we can control our nervous system with. And they're not hard tools. They're super simple. But we've got to just have that pause and then implement.
Yeah, there's Stephen, you didn't know this, but since we met, I started doing jujitsu.
I did know because I do follow you on Instagram.
Oh, nice, cool. So one of the things that I learned because when I first started, when I would get mounted or and there's something really heavy on you, like the panic that happens at that moment. And I remember my professor saying, "Hey, you're not getting submitted. Yes, you're in a bad position, but you have to figure out how to breathe through it and don't overreact, because when you overreact or, when you try to panic, your breathing starts to, like you're running out of breath." He's like, just have that he calls it diaphragmatic breathing, and just conserve your energy while the other person is trying to waste their energy. And then you just go one step at a time, get one knee, one side, get the other side, and just go one step at a time. No need to panic. And so that was huge for me. And so I use that in my daily life. When something starts to happen, I just go, or I'll do box breathing also, because you mentioned box breathing. I've done box breathing as well. But that's been something that's really been very beneficial for me. So that's one thing I want to add. Now, you also talked about what's good. I really like that, because that's something that I ask my clients. Anytime I go to people's houses, they always tell me the things that they don't want. I don't want my dog to jump. I don't want my dog to react. But then when I ask them, what do you want? They're like, well, I don't want them to jump. I don't want them. No, you're telling me what you don't want. Tell me what you want. And so that paints a picture of something that they can work towards, and then how they feel also.
Well, also, to add to that, I do this demo all the time. Don't think of a yellow bird.
Just did.
I don't want my dog to jump. All you're thinking about is what you don't want your dog to do. And it's difficult.
Well, that's the part of energy that's intention. What is it that you want right now? And whatever it is that you're picturing or thinking about, whatever you would be writing down on a piece of paper is going to happen. You know, I mean, you're gonna get one way or another, and that's a challenge. Do you have any tips to help people stay with a clear intention? Let's say somebody's at their front door, you know, they've written down their little reminder to do this, and this, and they start to lose their intention. Is it always going to be these physiological components that are going to bring us back to our mental presence to get back to our, okay, I got to do this. Are there things that, you know, we could learn to pay attention to, or other tips? You know, you're full of them. They're great.
You can start by reading his book first. We'll start there.
So, great question. So, you know, there's two things. There's a physiological part, and then I was talking about like optimism. That's a cognitive framework, right? So I'll back into this by talking about confidence. So every client that I come to wants more confidence. Every single one. 6-year-old Pro Bowl football player. I want more confidence, right? Even if they're the best, they want more, right? So I was asked them, where does confidence come from? Where does confidence come from? Here's the answers I get. Past performance, practice, all right answers. The real answer is this. In the moment, confidence comes from what you tell yourself. All things equal. Of course you have to practice. Of course you need your craft. We don't want to use past performance, because what if you just had a shitty past performance? You got to lean on that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's back to what you're telling yourself. So, with the example you gave, you know, I use very simple, like one-word phrases as an anchor. So it might be calm, might be leader, might be. So I like to pick a phrase with a physiological technique. So let's say someone's leashing their dog and the dog's jumping and they're starting to freak out. Deep breath in, could be a double breath exhale, 4, 7, 8, calms. So it's a reset. It's a physiological and it's a phrase. So it actually is a two-sided, you know, phrase is left brain, breath is right brain. So there's an integration of two things. Maybe we got to do that 3 times. But we do want, great question, something that is cognitive to have, you know, that North Star. And when we combine any of the techniques I teach, I'm always layering with people. Like one may work, one may not, right? Gosh, I did the breath, but I'm focusing on, you know, how bad it is outside with the weather. Okay, do the breath. Focus on what you can control now. Oh, okay. When we layer them, we've got big results. If we just lean on one, although I will say if you're going to lean on any, lean on the parasympathetic ones, the breath, because that's going to shift the nervous system, but you don't have to. You can add a couple. And, you know, I'll add to that, Todd and Art, you know, when you guys had me come work with the trainers, you know, and the topic is really performance and self-compassion. This whole body of knowledge, even since then, I've written more on it. This whole part of being there for yourself, like you would a good friend. That, from the research, we've got a lot of sports teams research, just increases performance. So taking care of yourself in those times of stress, which leads to some of the phrases you can use. May I be at ease. May I be at peace. May I be protected. Like those calm phrases have an effect on the nervous system. And the reason we use the may, it's an invitation for the feeling. Like if we're feeling super anxious and we say, I'm calm, your brain's like, no, you're not. May I? Yeah, it could be. And it's one of the techniques for quality time. I'm going to combine 2 techniques. One, I've added, I watched one of your posts, Todd, on the dog massage. Mm-hmm. You know, there's kind of the 3 points, the jaw, the eye, the head, the ears. And Mana just sits up there with his underbite, his teeth are sticking out. He's
snoring away.
But here's what I do. While I'm doing that, may you be at ease.
Yes.
May you be at peace. May you see the goodness in yourself. People are like, you're telling your dog this? No, it's energy. Of course he doesn't know the words.
So you're giving words such a powerful, energetic meaning to use in the future at a different time, right? And so I think this is the important reason people like you have such influence even in our world, is because honestly, we're not working with dogs. We're working with behavior. We're just using a dog as the vessel of communication to talk about behavior. But Art, we do what he just described, right? Where we layer a massage with a sound and a smell. Mm-hmm. Remember the lady who had the dog place up north, and she said she would every day she would play certain music when the dogs would relax and nap. And she had done it so consistently that when you would play this music, the dogs would just get comatose. And one of the dogs took a hit from a porcupine, and they were able to take the quills out with the music. And it didn't require the dog being put under, because it had so much psychological influence of calming. And I think people don't realize how much control they can have over that connection, because it can work in us too. Like you said, you're going to say, connect the sound to a breath so it's calm. That's awesome. That's a good tip.
Now, I think the opposite is true also, because meaning when their dog is fearful and people go in there like, it's okay. Yes. It's almost like saying it's okay to be like that. Yes. When we have the ability to have this exchange, this energetic exchange, to say, we're going to work through this. You can be confident. Like, and what was it, the phrase you just said? May I, or
may I see the goodness in myself.
I love that.
May I be at ease, at peace, calm. I'm a little bit of a dental baby. Early on when I was a kid, I got all my cavities drilled with no Novocaine from like 5 to 8. And the doctor would be an old German guy and be like, Stephen, the shot hurts, so let's just drill it. And I remember this time, dude, I was sitting there 5 years old going, what the? So my whole life, I'm out in the car doing box breathing, even for teeth clean. Now I'm good now. Every time, just have my teeth clean. I'm just sitting there while she's jabbering away. I'm just like, maybe at ease. I'm the whole time, because it's activating the parasympathetic nervous system. It's activating the system. And I found that to be very effective. And when I go to speak now, or I go to work with somebody, I'm already, may you, client, be at ease. May you be safe. I'm sending that energetic field before I get there. And as well, one of the techniques for like even the dogs, may I be at ease, inhale, exhale, pet the dog, may you be at ease. So this back and forth, may I be safe, exhale, pet the dog, may you be safe. So there's this nice back and forth of it. And Todd, I wanted to say something that's really funny. I work with my football player, Kaimi Fairbairn. He's the Texans kicker. And I do a lot of hypnosis with all my clients, but every week, we do hypnosis. So I got my recording here. So Mana's crate is behind me. So Mana has listened to hundreds of custom hypnosis recordings. And today was super funny. And we were like deep in the zone, and I turned around. Usually he's out, but today he was just like this. What's going on? Something in a word I said or something. He's usually out. He's usually snoring when I start doing it, but something must have triggered him today. But he's heard. So when I modulate my voice, I can change, it's very easy for me to, shift, and you guys are experts at it as well. But because he's heard it so many times, when I'm modulating or I'm shifting, you can see him alter.
Well, humans are very unaware of that. And so when we come in, that's one of the first things we can start to show them is that, your dog's having a lot of conversation with you. You may be missing based on the way your energy goes up and down, so that it's very difficult for owners to interpret some of those changes. So let's say, somebody wanted to say, all right, how could we use this? So it sounds like for an owner, let's say they're walking their dog and they see a dog and it makes them anxious. Is right that moment they recognize they're anxious where you start one of those methods of breathing where you're going to pick, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And should they continue to walk or should they stop if they're going to be doing like that?
So, now you guys will have your part of this because of your technical expertise.
Sure.
If you can stay in motion, if it's appropriate, obviously if there's some danger, that's different. If you can do it, you regulate. And so if we have the dog stop, and sit or whatever it's going to do, or just, it's kind of changing where he's at. If you can keep him moving, and you taught me this, Todd, his body moving, and doing the breath, you're simultaneously altering your state while you're moving versus stop. If the trigger is so high, now the dog's stopping, and I think is feeling that more than if it's a continuous motion and you're shifting. Now, if you can't, it's no problem. The whole thing is repeated. It's rarely once and done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that kind of based on the thing? I know Andrew Huberman's talked about that, where when you're moving forward, you're in a state of acceptance. It's the act of moving forward itself is the unconscious of I'm moving into something versus if I stop, I'm now more in a freeze or an avoidance state. Is that?
Yeah, it's in that concept. And obviously this is all context dependent, but if I can keep the momentum of energy, because as soon as I stop, my energy stops, and now we have an animal, we have a dog. So that dog is not stopping, and something's going to change, right? As soon as I walked in before this, and, I'm still working on different, things with him, and, he's in a pace, and, that bulldog, he's looking at it, and I just say, stop, and he's like, oh, where am I at, right? Like, I got to listen. So I think, momentum keeps momentum going, and if you stop, not that it's not effective, it's just, there's a lot of other things that are happening when you do that. And you're right. You're leaning into it.
Got it. Art, did you have some questions from this part, that we haven't covered? Because there's so much to offer that can come up here as far as the way our energy and what we can do to affect it.
Well, I think that, because as we were talking, I had this this thought, because I've also, seen your website, Stephen, and you've worked with athletes, and I'm a big fan of MMA. I love MMA. And I've always noticed that if someone goes, like, let's say undefeated, and then they all of a sudden get knocked out and they lose their belt, how that's hard to come back and get their belt. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
Well, I worked with, it's on my website, Franchon Deshawn Cruz. So
that's why I saw that. That's why I brought this up. Yeah.
She came to me last year, and she had lost the women's middleweight belt. Great lady. And I came into their camp kind of late. Like, we had like 5 weeks. And as a performance coach, you got to be very careful when you're stepping in to start moving things around with people's emotions and strategies when they're in competition or just about ready to, if you've never worked with them before. Mm-hmm. So this is going to tie into it. So, she told me all, why she lost. She was very accountable. There was a lot of outside things. And then I watched her film. I noticed what she looked like in between rounds when she lost. A lot of people don't pay attention to this. This is very important. What happens in the corner has a direct relationship to what happens in the octagon or the ring. It's not just some 1 minute you're taking it off. There is a whole bunch of resetting that needs to happen. So what was happening is when we looked at the film, she was like, just disheveled, wasn't in a good upright position. Coaches were in disarray. And so with her, we did a lot of hypnosis. But most of my coaching, besides the tools, the foundational tools, was her in the corner, regulating herself, getting the information, but not getting out of the fight. It's not like you go to the corner and you just relax. This is a long way of saying you've got to rewire how you are focusing on either getting something back. For her, it wasn't. It was just being who you are. See, if you're out there going, I need to get that back, or I need to hit that field goal, or I need to hit a home run, we're not present anymore. No, what you got to do is leash the dog, take a breath, be present. All those steps of being present get you a championship back. And this is what I did know. So I turned the fight on. She was on the undercard of one of the Jake Paul. And then the announcer's like, well, Franchon is a 10-1 underdog. I'm like, what? I had no idea. It didn't matter. And she got a belt.
She won. Yeah.
Because she focused on being in the moment and doing the fundamentals. And it's the same thing with dog training.
That fight, I think, was here in Texas, right?
It may have been. It may have been. Where are you at? You're in Dallas?
Dallas, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What jiu-jitsu school are you at?
it's Alex Martin's. He comes from Manaus, which is like in the Amazon. It's like I talked to my friends that are from like Rio de Janeiro, and they were like, "Oh, those are all the tough guys are from."
Oh, nice.
But he's been here for I don't know, like some like 20 years. But he has like schools now everywhere. I had never heard of him, but like he has like over 500 positive reviews on Google. Like, and honestly, learning from him, it's amazing human being, amazing teacher.
Just like dog trainers. There's
yes, like
great ones.
it's so, and honestly, it's kind of helped me out just with dog training also, just because like you remember me, I'm not a very big person, but I don't have to overpower the dogs, right? It's just using that finesse and sensitivity and things like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, going back to what we were just talking about, I think that also relates to when they have a dog and, let's say they get a dog from a breeder, or it could be any person, that could be somebody from a breeder. And let's say their dog overreacts. And so the person says, oh, my dog's never done this before.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of sends them down this spiral of like, oh my God, now I'm scared. So it goes from, I just experienced something. Now I'm fearful. Now I don't want to walk my dog. Now my dog is acting at the door. And so it just one goes to the other. So I think like what you're talking about, like how would you walk someone I mean, I know how I would do it. It's probably gonna be the same, but how would you walk someone through those steps, like to get them back into being, so they can build more confidence, at least take their dog for a walk?
Yeah. So great question. I've experienced this. I think, Todd, told you at one point, we've done a lot of training. At one point, Mana, as his testosterone started kicking in, started getting after a few dogs, like in a transition of the dog park. And I was like, oh shit, I can't let him be around dogs now. That's not the case. But I had like a month where I was very like gunshot. And I think, Todd, you recommended somebody in Venice. I went to see her and she kind of was like, hey, just kind of did a little reset for my brain. Stuff you already taught me, but I needed a little reset. They're like, hey, it's okay. Very, I don't want anyone else to get hurt or mine. It goes back to, it's like in our daily, like we get thrown off some habits. We've got to be able to have a technique to reset. So first of all, acknowledging that this is a difficulty. So what's self-compassion? Being there for yourself in the face of setback, adversity, or perceived failure. This is what we're talking about right here. Oh man, that sucked. Oh, so step 2, number 1 is mindfulness, not over attaching, not dissociating. Yeah, this happened. It sucks. 2 is common humanity. Now, what's happening to me happens to thousands of people. Okay. Number 3, getting back into the phrases. May I be at ease? May I be safe? May I see the goodness? Now, that's just one technique, right? The other thing is I have people anchor past positive experiences. So I'll have a person or an athlete say, I want you to think about a time where you were unstoppable, or an executive, doesn't matter. So they get this memory, and I have them put a circle on the ground. They go put the memory in that circle. So they do that. They said, when I tell you, I want you to step into it, and I do an induction where the memory's going through every cell, every nerve, every fiber in the body. And I'm expanding that. So it's activating the emotion of being unstoppable and confident. And then I have them connect a symbol, could be a sun, could be anything, and a color. And so I'm voice inducing this, expanding the color of that symbol. Now we have a resourceful anchor. So anytime they think about that memory and that color and that symbol, there's an activation of that confidence. So I may do that to kind of reestablish them, and just have them being aware of what phrases they're using and baby steps, right? I didn't take my dog right back to the dog park the next day, but I had him around other dogs and kind of just work back in there. Doing multiple things like this, remember, it's always reestablishing the baseline calm nervous system. That's what's got.
It's hard for people to celebrate and recognize little wins. Do you have any advice to get people to see, a big situation such as a dog walk that may have some negativity or a lot of negativity, and find victory to build momentum?
What's good?
So Todd, you guys are going to love this. So when people come at me with like, oh man, it sucked. Oh, Jesus. he pissed on this lady and he jumped up on this kid. And I go, could it have been worse? And they're like, what? I go, could it have been worse? And they're like, oh yeah, it could have been. Now we got him. Mm-hmm. See, sometimes we got to flip how the language is going in. Mm-hmm. If I just go with, well, what was good? I mean, I saw him or her, walk for, 200 yards and, was, no. I got to ask them, could it have gone worse? That flips the thinking upside down. And then creates the gap for them to see, oh yeah, these are some good things that happen. And, that 1% better philosophy, just a little bit better. But that question, it's like cold water. It gets people like, oh man, it could have bit that kid, could have, chased after that skateboard. But you gotta sometimes change the perceptual thinking about what they're thinking about.
My daughter's a theater, and her theater teacher went, you didn't die, did you?
Did you die?
You didn't die. It worse, right?
What's
so,
that?
Yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
What's that movie? The Hangover. But did you die?
Yeah.
So funny. Man, where did the hour go? That was insane.
Yeah. We need to have you back because, I think we could do a whole episode on like visualization.
Yeah.
And getting people in the rhythm of, how to see and visualize and the mind body connection. It's not just the importance for the outcome of success in the sense of your performance, but like how you can influence one using the other and how one creates the other and getting those connections made. You said something, we could go on and on, but you said something about, we go into one mindset and I'm like, dude, the dogs are matching that. So you have a lot to offer dog trainers.
Mm-hmm. And I want to thank both of you, as well as Caesars have made a profound shift in my process, not just, with my dog, but just deeper understanding of tools that I may have used or not used, but just how deeply connected, we all are. We're all connected. And it's one of the things that, for me, to help people continue to increase their baseline happiness, be able to regulate negative emotions and cultivate positive emotions, because the greater baseline happiness is a more present and connected and contributing person in the world. That it breaks my heart sometimes when I walk out in the world and everyone's on their phone with their dog.
Or with their kids.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll keep giving this great information, like podcasts like yours and mine, and just keep getting people the information.
Well, that's that. Where can people find you, by the way? Like, let's get out your Instagram handle or wherever they can find you.
Stephen Griffith author is my Instagram, and then my podcast is A Game. Just started that off a couple months ago. So, and on Apple or Spotify, any of the places.
Awesome. And what's your website?
Get it, and we'll have you back, and we'll go deeper into a lot of this stuff.
And what's your website?
Website artstephengriffith.com. Really easy.
Oh, okay. Cool. And we'll put in the show notes so that people can see it, those people that are listening. But Stephen, thank you so much. This is great. We could have probably gone for another 2 hours personally. It would have been a whole Huberman podcast for sure.
Well, look forward to doing it again, guys.
Yeah. Look forward to having you guys. Thank you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks.